Mama G story time. Life lesson, expectations postponed part 2. One day after the open mic outing, Glenda was hanging out with her aunt when the house phone rang. Her aunt picked it up and answered, then without a word, she handed it to Glenda, who was surprised because she didn't know anybody in Canada who would want to call her on the landline. Grabbing the phone, she whispered to her aunt, "Who is it?" To which she said, "It's for you," and left the room. In a rather shocked voice, she said, "Hello," and to her surprise, it sounded like the redhead she had met at the open mic night. "How did you get this number?" she asked. "I have my ways," he responded. They started talking, and Grayson wasted no time in telling her that he really liked her and wanted to get to know her. At this stage in his life, he wasn't playing games. She realized that to completely cut him off, she needed to tell him just how damaged she was. She then said, "Thank you for going out of your way to find me, but I'm not the girl you want. I am damaged goods. I am a single mother of a 1-year-old I had outside of wedlock." She explained everything she had experienced with Huxley. And that even if she wasn't damaged goods, she just wasn't in a place to start anything with anybody. She didn't want to waste his time, so she encouraged him to go and look for a good girl who his parents would probably approve of and not her. After hearing everything she had experienced, Grayson was even more convinced that she was the right person for him and was now even more determined to win her over. After they hung up, he reached out to her cousin Paisley to get their house address. Unbeknownst to Glenda, her aunt had left her to go and listen in on her bedroom phone, as she was equally surprised when the call came in. The next day during breakfast, Tyla gently poured out some unsolicited advice. She said, "There wasn't a right time for love, because when it knocks and shines on a person, they should try to grab on. It is not the sort of thing that a person should ignore because, for some, it never knocks again." Then she casually asked if Glenda knew the song, "Bless the Broken Road," by Rascal Flatts, but before Glenda could answer, there was a knock on the door, and when Tyla opened it to find out who was at the door, she found a flower delivery man who had a package for Glenda. When she returned, she handed Glenda a bouquet of roses, with a card that said, "You are not damaged goods. What you are is beautiful. Don't let me miss out on a beautiful woman, because of what a man who didn't deserve you to begin with, did to you." She was lost for words. She could not understand how Grayson would still be interested, after everything she shared with him. That evening, he called, and they spoke at length. She thanked him for the flowers and the card, but she was still trying to dissuade him from pursuing anything with her. But that did not deter him, and before they ended the call that night, he told her he would call again, the following day. The morning after, the ladies were enjoying breakfast when they heard the doorbell ring. Tyla turned to Glenda with a suspicious smile and said, "I think that's for you." "Oh, come on you guys," she shyly responded as she got up to check who was at the door. "Hello miss, I have a package for Miss Glenda," the delivery man said as he handed her another bouquet with a card and a small box. Glenda reached out and received the packages, and thanked the delivery man. As she walked back to the kitchen, her aunt and cousin were anxiously waiting to see what she had received. She sheepishly volunteered another bouquet with a gift box. She opened the card to see what he had written this time, and it said, "I've seen what you can do. I've seen you make miracles and hopeless dreams come true. You made the heavens and the stars, everything. Come on, how hard could it be? This song has been playing on my playlist, non-stop, and I find that it's part of my prayer these days. Try to figure out the name of the song, and maybe you can tell me what you think about it when we talk this evening." She could not help but smile when she finished reading what the card said. Paisley started looking up the lyrics to the song. That day, they played the song on repeat such that when evening came, she knew the lyrics quite well. As the daily gifts and evening calls continued, she slowly but surely started looking forward to talking to him. Up until this point, she had not thought of the possibility of finding love with another man, but here she was, slowly falling for Grayson. On a Friday evening call, Grayson asked Glenda to go on a date. He said, "I love our evening calls, but I have missed looking into those beautiful brown eyes of yours. What are you doing tomorrow? I would like to take you somewhere." That Saturday, they went out, and from then onwards, they saw each other every single day, as they knew Glenda's time was winding down. Grayson informed his family about Glenda, and he wanted them to meet before she returned home. So, Grayson's mother offered to host a dinner for the families to meet. As planned, the two families came together and they hit it off. They had a wonderful time together. Grayson's family was especially impressed by Glenda's quiet confidence. It was easy to see how their son had fallen in love with her because they too just loved and adored her. Grayson and Glenda continued seeing each other and talking every evening, and on the last Saturday in Canada, Grayson invited both families plus a few friends to a picnic at the Bouchard Gardens. Most of the family and friends had not been to the gardens in the last few years, so it was a pleasant change of scenery because, as always, the gardens were beautiful. Glenda was so happy to end her vacation on such a high note. What a beautiful send-off, she thought. As everyone was digging into the pastries and drinks, Grayson got up to give what seemed like a speech. He thanked everyone for coming, and for their support as they navigated their relationship. He also thanked Paisley for exchanging phone numbers with the stranger who wanted to talk to her visiting cousin. He then turned his attention to Glenda, who was unsuspecting of what was going on. He started by sharing their journey to this point, and how for him, it was love at first sight. Then Grayson knelt before Glenda in tears. He asked Glenda to marry him. She could not believe it, and mouthed, "What? Are you sure? It's only been 2 months," to which he responded, "Actually, 1 month and 2 weeks, but who's counting?" he jokingly said and smiled. "From the very first time I saw you walking into that open mic, I knew you were the one for me. So yes, I am 100% sure. The time I have spent with you has been the best time of my life, and I don't want to do life without you." With tears in her eyes, she looked at him and said, "Yes, I will marry you," and with that, he put a beautiful ring on her finger. He got up, the two embraced, and sealed it with a kiss. As they were holding each other, Glenda whispered to Grayson, "Now I just have to tell my parents," to which he responded, "They already know. I spent almost 2 hours talking, well, actually trying to convince your dad to give me his blessing. It was important for me to ask him for your hand in marriage. What happened to you didn't just happen to you alone, it happened to them as well, so I wanted to make sure they knew what kind of a person I was, and that I would not only take care of you and Gavin but also protect your heart." Hearing this, Glenda started to tear up as she was lost for words, and Grayson wiped them away and said, "I mean every word I have said. I promise." A few days after the proposal, Glenda left Canada to go and get started on the wedding preparations. Everything was going smoothly, but she knew that a talk with Huxley was inevitable. Even though he was an absent father, he was still legally the father. So as the wedding day was slowly approaching, Glenda wanted to get the paperwork done. So her family summoned him and his family to inform them what was going on. He was furious to hear that they wanted to take his son abroad. How could he raise him from a different continent, he questioned them. He would not listen to reason and was determined to keep the child with him. And then his father, who had been listening to everything he had been saying, started to address him. "Huxley, my son, your son is almost 2 years old. How many times have you taken him to your house? You need to let him go with his mother. You haven't shown any interest in this child since he was born. So let him go, and release Glenda to move on as well." After many hours of discussion and persistence from Huxley, he finally agreed to sign off on the paperwork for Gavin to travel. As planned, Grayson and his family arrived to a warm welcome from Glenda and her family. It was truly an amazing coming together of two families. They got married 2 weeks later. It was indeed a beautiful wedding, and after the ceremony, the couple flew to Livingstone, a popular tourist destination, for their honeymoon. A week after the wedding, Grayson, Glenda, and Gavin left for Canada together. On their flight back home, Glenda reached for Grayson's hand and said, "When my mom and aunt presented me with the opportunity of visiting Canada, I was too broken to even fathom the possibility of being around people or even doing anything to have a good time. The last thing I expected was to find a wonderful man I would fall madly in love with. I will forever be grateful to those 2 ladies who talked me into it even when they knew I didn't want to go, and Paisley, for being the best wing woman." Grayson smiled, then looked at her and said, "Well, aren't we a pair?" my friends had to drag me out of the house to go to that open mic that night. I had refused to go with them, but they would not take no for an answer. Looking back at her husband, Glenda whispered, "What we are is a perfect match." This story offers valuable moral lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and the significance of embracing opportunities for personal growth. It's very important for a person to strive for perseverance in the face of adversity, to remain steadfast in the pursuit of one's goals despite setbacks. Believing in the transformative power of forgiveness, both in granting oneself and others second chances. By illustrating Glenda's journey as she navigated her life's challenges and uncertainties, the story emphasizes the importance of resilience, empathy, and the willingness to seize new opportunities for redemption. Overall, it promotes a message of hope, resilience, and the potential for positive change in the face of adversity. I hope you have enjoyed this week's story. Until next time, this has been Mama G's Storytime. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, @1MamaG, and hit that notification button to get alerts when new stories are posted.